Yeah, we're on. All right. Well, welcome everybody back to Country Drive, and I am honored to introduce our guest today, Dillon Weldon.
Well, I appreciate you for having me, Taylor. I really do.
Yeah. I'll just be very honest with the audience. We have already spent a couple hours together having lunch with Roger, and so we're just going to continue the conversation here.
Roger Murrah.
Roger Murrah.
Yeah, that was incredible. Just incredible to sit there and have. I've met so many songwriters, like really great songwriters. I was talking about Mr. Gary Gentry, and just getting to sit there and hear them talk about the stories of how they came into it and the story behind this song or that song. It's just, it blows my mind. I could listen to that all day. I could have sat there in that diner forever listening to him tell those kind of stories.
I know. I kind of felt that for a moment. When Roger got going on some stories that you and I were asking him about, I was like, I hope Dillon still comes to the podcast, or he might be back. I'm going to stay here all day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for setting that up. That was just incredible. Now, I got Roger's phone number so we can get together and do something. And then Jim McBride, you give me this book that he wrote a little message to me. I just, thank you. Thank you for that.
Well, just so people know, on top of being a songwriter and a music historian, you also do this content creation that's, really exploded for you. How does it feel for you when you find out, like, Jim and Roger? So, I guess when Roger saw you earlier, he was like, oh, I know you.
It blows my mind. It blows my mind when anybody, especially when I come to Nashville, it happens more often over here. But anytime anybody recognizes me, it blows my mind. But when it's somebody that I've appreciated for years, like Roger and Jim, Gary, it blows my mind. It's incomprehensible, really. It's just, it's really great, really great.
Well, I have to tell you, man, it's an exciting time in what you might call journalism for country music. I'm a big fan of Whiskey Riff. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of Farce the Music, Saving Country Music. I think Trigger writes some amazing articles. Mm-hmm. And, I kind of consider this all under the umbrella of independent media and then content creators.
Right.
So I really appreciate you for the role that you kind of play in that, in shedding light on some of these songs, some of these moments, some of these artists. We've talked about some of these moments on our podcast. So when I get to see you kind of really sum it up, it's really amazing. And it's just such an exciting time. And I'm so happy for all your success.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing what can be done on social media, the connections that can be made. I mean, the connections that I've made, like we were just talking about, it's a whole different world, and it's incredible. It's been a blessing to me, 100%, and get to sit across from guys like you and talk about it. It's incredible, and I'm happy with what you're doing. I've watched your podcasts, and you do a great job, and I'm glad we were able to connect and hopefully help each other throughout the future.
Yeah, checks in the mail for that compliment. What got you? So how did you? We're going to talk about your songwriting, but I do want to ask, like, what kind of inspired the content creation and navigating the waters of figuring out how to put these videos out that really, caught fire and got so much or getting so much attention to this day?
That's a tough question because it goes far back. I don't know if you want the whole story, but the country music side of it, the country music stuff, around 2020, around COVID, I was watching a video that Grady Smith had put out on YouTube. And he said something there about country music was taking over TikTok. And I said, well, that's where I need to be, because I've been writing songs since I was a kid. And I thought maybe that's where I can start. And so the first little while, I tried different things. And really the main goal was to be able to get my songs recognized. And as a lot of musicians message me about and have found out, that's tough. That's a tough hill to climb. And a lot of people can't climb it. It's just really hard. So I started just talking about stuff I like, telling stories and this and that, and started talking about my favorite artists and things. I'm like, I need to keep it country because that's what I love. I love country music. So I tell these stories about my favorite songs or musicians, songwriters, and people love them. People love the stories. And so it's just kind of blown up, but it's been incredible, an incredible journey so far. And I really can't wait to see where it takes me, because like today, it was just last week. I didn't know I was going to be having lunch with Roger, and there we was. It's so much fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love how the way you just told that is it kind of grew organically, where you were messing with your music and just kind of putting stuff out there, and then you said, "I'm just going to try this." It wasn't like it was some grand plan.
Yeah, well, it goes deeper than that. It goes a lot deeper than that. I guess I'll tell the longer form of the story if you don't mind. Going all the way back to when I was a kid, like third grade, I would write stories, 4 or 5 page long stories, and giving my friends to read and stuff. And then when I got a little bit older, I kind of got out of the writing, but I've always loved writing. But when I got in them awkward teenage years, you don't want people, that doesn't really fit in. All my friends are playing little dribblers and baseball. And here I am writing, that don't fit in. So I kind of backed off of it there for a little while until my dad was watching a Chris Christopherson documentary one day.
Oh, here we go.
And I'm sitting there watching Chris Christopherson. I'm getting introduced to him I'd heard his music, but I'd never gotten into a documentary, And I'm hearing all this stuff about Chris Christopherson for the first time. And that's the moment I said, that's what I want to do. This man, he had an incredible life. A songwriter, he was proud of it. So I'm going to be proud of it too. So that's when I really started getting more serious about writing. And in the 9th grade, I had a teacher, Miss Samantha Bruisley. We had to write poems for an assignment. And she was so impressed. And I can't remember exactly what it was about, but I remember it was an emotional poem about just life. And she was so impressed by it that she emailed it to my mom. They worked together and just bragged on me. And she probably doesn't even remember that, but that really touched me, as a kid, an adult, saying, you've got a talent in writing. And that stuck with me and really pushed me. And then we got older. I'm from a town, I told you earlier, where I live right now, Sugartown, is population 187 if you look it up on the map. So there's nothing to do. We didn't even have a dollar store. We have one now, but back then we didn't. You had to drive 20 minutes to get to a dollar store. So we come up with goofy stuff to do just to have fun. We started making videos, and you can't find, don't try to find them. They're not there anymore. But we make these goofy,
we can test Joey's, sorry.
It was just goofy stuff, just kids being kids. And so we started doing that, and people around the community, they thought it was hilarious what we were doing. Most people, there was about 10% of them who thought we were just goofy and could have been doing something better with our time than making videos. But, well, look, how do you like me now?
Amen.
Like Toby Keith.
Thank you, Toby.
No, but we did that. I did that with my buddy Stephen Maxwell, Josh Walker, Blaze, Leonard's. We all did those together and had fun with it. Then I get out of school and went to college, and you're the first person I'm telling this story to publicly, and one of the first person I'm telling this story to at all, because it's kind of out there. And I've always thought that a lot of people, if I told this story, people wouldn't believe it, would think I was crazy or something. But I don't really care anymore. It really happened. I was in college, and my first half of college, I was in pre-vet. I thought I wanted to be a vet. I decided I didn't. But I worked at a vet clinic. Dr. Abdallah and Miss Carlin, some of the best people I've ever met. I worked for them. And I was heading up to Shreveport after work one day, and I was about halfway there, which is a 3-hour drive. So I was about an hour and a half north of where I live. And I come across a garage sale. And I'm the kind of, if I got time, I'm going to stop at a garage sale, see if I can catch me a deal, So I pull in this garage sale, and I'm looking through stuff, and this old man comes out. He had to be 95 or 100. I mean, he was on a walker, frail, old man. And he comes walking out of the house, and I remember thinking, man, he probably needs to be sitting down somewhere instead of walking out here. I thought he was coming to ask me if I saw anything I wanted. Well, he walks towards me. He goes, "Dillon?" And I kind of thought, well, maybe he knows me from the vet clinic. I said, "Yes, sir. I know you." He said, "No, you don't know me." He called me about my name. He said, "No, you don't know me." He said, "But God told me to come pray for you." And I said, I was, stunned, shocked. I said, "Okay." And he come over there and he put both his hands on my shoulder. And he said, "God told me to tell you that you're bound for something big. Something big's going to happen in your life. And just always remember him and he'll bless you. And there was more to it, but that was the gist of what he was telling me. And it blew my mind. It really did. And so I graduate college and I go into construction, which is what my family did. And I tried all these different, I'm an entrepreneur. Like Roger said, he saw it in me. You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I tried these different things. I had a restaurant at one point, hated that. Don't go in the restaurant business, by the way. That sucks. But everything I tried, some of it would be semi-successful, but nothing ever was what I wanted it to be. And I always felt like it's just, this ain't my calling, you know. And after the restaurant closed, I took a job in Montana doing project management for construction. That didn't work out. I ended up in Austin, Texas. Those people were crooks that I went to work for, so that really didn't work out. I ended up quitting them because it was some shady stuff happening, but I stayed there for a little while and worked for another couple, helped them build an addition, and I got this call, hey, you got a job in Houston waiting for you. Project management, long-term, good money. Some of the best money I would have ever been making. I said, okay, so I go to Houston and I get this place to stay. I think it was the next day or 2 days later, I get a call. Well, that project fell through. I had nothing. All I had was the money I'd made in Austin, which was luckily enough to float me for a little while, but I had no prospects, and I just moved into this new house, nothing. And I said, well, I got some time. I got some money. I must be the next 2 weeks. I need to reflect on what I'm doing and figure it out. And I've filled out applications, called people, tried to get on, and it's just nothing was working. And I went out on the porch one day and I said, God, you say in your book that the birds don't have to worry about what they're going to eat. And I've been worrying and trying to do it my way. So you know what? I'm handing it over to you. Show me what you got. And I'd already been doing the country music stuff as a hobby, really, just trying to get my songs out there. Never thought anything I would ever be able to make a living off of it, for sure. The next week, my first video gets 1 million+ views, and I get a check coming in.
Wow.
And enough that I'm like, okay, if I can do it once, if I can do it again, I might can do something with this. And it just happens again and again and again. And it was a blessing all the way, 100% a blessing. And it's a wild story, but I believe that old man, he was told something, and those 10 years I tried to do it my way. And when I should have listened to what that old man had told me, and it would have saved me 10 years of hard labor.
How often do you think about that man?
Every day. Every day I think about that. Every single day. That's one of the most profound experiences of my life. Whenever he walked out of the house and called me by name, that was, I
got chills.
How do you explain it? You can't, it's just, it really is. It's God. That's all it is.
95. Did you ever ask him, like, how the hell did you know my name? He's like, I just knew it.
I was so stunned. I didn't even look at the rest of the garage sale. I walked back and after we prayed, I thanked him.
That's beautiful.
And I walked back into my vehicle. I went to Shreveport. About halfway from there to Shreveport, I finally got enough in me to call my mom. And I was like, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. And she was like, that is wild. But I guess stuff like that happens sometimes.
You don't hear about it a lot, so it's amazing. It
was incredible. And I often wondered whatever happened to that old man. I'd like to maybe one day go over there and try to see if I could even recognize which house it was. I'm telling you, I was so mind blown when I left it. I was speechless.
It's kind of shocked me.
Yeah.
I always try to wonder about guardian angels, and not just a guardian angel is probably not a good description. If we're visited for just a brief moment from someone that we need to hear a message from one time, and then they're out of our life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that might have been it. That might have been. I get chills to this day just talking about it. Like I said, I don't tell many. This is the first time I've ever publicly talked about it because it's such a out there story. You know how people are.
Oh gosh.
But it's the truth, the gospel truth. That's exactly how it happened.
My goodness, that's amazing.
But 10 years of hard-headedness though until I got here.
But it still rings true that it was 10 years ago and that his prophecy came true for you. So thus far.
Yeah. And I got a feeling deep down that this ain't what he was talking about though. Like where I'm at now is huge. Don't get me wrong, and I'm blessed. I love it, but I think it's gonna go even further.
I know it is.
From what he told me, I just feel it.
Yeah. And that's beautiful.
His words have been encouraging to me ever since he said that to me, and just incredible.
I've heard 2 or 3 instances of that happening with people where someone they didn't know brought them a message of keep going, and when they look back on it, they think they don't even know if the person was real.
Yeah.
Like they almost question whether the person was real. Like it looked real, everything felt real, it was a real person, but now they look back and they're like, it almost felt like it was an angel that I was talking to.
I could see that. Definitely. Angel come in the form of an old 100-year-old man.
Yeah.
But I think that he was giving my name so that I would take it serious. Because had I not taken it serious, I'd have probably just thought, crazy old man, But he called me by name coming out of there. I never met the man in my life. Never met him again.
Isn't that Brad Paisley's video, Waiting on a Woman? Isn't Matlock a ghost?
Yeah, Andy Griffith. Yeah.
Well, that's a good way for me to transition into asking you. So, again, I don't need to promote your stuff. You're amazing. Most people know you already. Thank you. Dillon Weldon on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Everywhere.
Be careful on the Facebook ones because there are fake pages on there.
Everywhere. Good Lord, man. I feel for some of these really big people because I get people like you messaged me just the other day, happy birthday. My birthday ain't for another few months. It was a fake account.
A fake account had posted it was his birthday, and he looked like a complete idiot. But I asked because so most of your stuff right now is country music content. What's your favorite era in country music?
Probably around 75 to 85 if I had to pick a decade.
Right around when the Outlaws album went platinum. And
Hank Jr. really started doing his thing. And then you got guys like John Anderson coming on the scene and George Strait in his early days coming on. That's the gold. For me, that's the golden era. I know it's subjective to everybody, but that's the era I listen to the most. Haggard, Jones. That was their golden years, and I love it.
Congratulations to John Anderson on the Hall of Fame, and sympathies to George Strait. He's lost 3 of his main people recently.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for him.
His tour manager, and I can't remember who the other person is.
I remember seeing the post that he had posted.
He's had 3 10 members pass recently. So God bless him. But 74 to 78. When did George Strait debut?
Oh,
was it pre or post 80?
It was right around the beginning of the 80s, I want to say.
See, when George Strait's first album came out, we had Tony Brown on the podcast. Mm-hmm. And I think he took over from Pure Country on.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a new album about to drop. And I think he spent 2 albums away from him, and now he brought him back for this new album. Are you a big George fan?
I love George Strait, yeah. So I get some flack because I've made some content where I said that George Strait wasn't the king of country music, in my opinion. And George has a lot of diehard fans. But, we were talking earlier with Roger about who my favorite is. And I said that, to me, Merle Haggard, he was the trifecta of country music. He was a songwriter, singer, guitar picker. He just had it all together. And it's hard to beat Merle Haggard, in my opinion. Yeah,
I mean, it's so hard to compare artists from generation to generation. Right, yeah. I mean, there's so many different elements. So when we say King George, what we really mean is there was a King George, so it sounds, it's kind of a marketing gimmick.
Yeah.
But he was the king of really 80s in the country. He was the only one for me that was holding down the traditional, never yielding, the kind of thing we would get eventually from Randy Travis and Alan Jackson. So he was the kind of the king of the traditional country in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, I mean, to say that the king of all country music.
Yeah.
This is why music's great. We get to debate it.
Yeah.
And guess what? No one's right.
No one's right. It's all subjective. 100%.
Yeah.
There's people out there who hate Merle Haggard or hate George Strait. They just don't like their music, and that's fine. And yeah, it's all subjective. But
if you meet someone who tells you they hate Merle Haggard, is there any more conversation after that?
No. Why would you have a conversation? Apparently
I don't need that shit in my life.
Something's wrong with their ears. Apparently, that's the conversation. Like, you need to go to a doctor and get your ears checked.
Bro, and George Strait, like, you talk about a guy that's gotten respect from all over the place. A while back, I saw Jamie Foxx perform in You Look So Good in Love.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
So, I mean, he transcends the genre.
Oh, yeah, and there's a lot of guys that do. We were talking about Ray Charles earlier.
Yeah.
Modern Sounds in Country Music, one of the best albums of all time. There's a lot of... That's why I like talking about country music history, because I think there's a lot of people who haven't heard a lot of those stories going back. There's a lot of people who think that country music, they associate with racism or something because of some certain people who have done things.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the roots, who was Jimmy Rogers inspired by?
A black man.
Who was Hank Williams taught to play the guitar from? Rufus Payne. It all goes back to those Mississippi Delta blues and all that.
Robert Johnson,
Lead Belly, all these guys, absolutely. And that's probably my second favorite genre of music is, older blues, R&B, Motown stuff, all that stuff. It's got heart and soul to it, just like my favorite country music does. I ain't saying all country music has heart and soul, but my favorite has that heart and soul.
If I could go to one concert for one dead artist, it would be Otis Redding.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh.
Because you always hear Jimi Hendrix, Bob Marley, and those are definitely things I would think about. But my number one, I'm a big Travis Tritt fan, Otis Redding fan. There's a kid coming up now that has a lot of elements of Otis. Have you heard Kashus Culpepper?
Oh yeah, we're friends on TikTok.
Are you?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever talked to him on there. I need to though. He's good though.
He's really very good. And I think I don't know, but I think I'm guessing he's very heavily influenced by Otis. And I love that kind of Otis crossing into country sound.
Yeah, boy, could you imagine being at a concert and hearing Otis sing "These Arms of Mine" live? Good Lord, that's
"These Arms of Mine" is the first song he ever sung at Stax Records.
Really?
Do you know the story of how he got discovered?
No, I'm not really familiar.
He drove this artist from Macon to Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
This artist that he drove, he was going to be his valet. And he got to Memphis, just drove the guy, and it was the guy who was going to be doing a recording session. So he had to unload all his gear for him. And I think Otis had a little idea in his mind of how he was going to work the situation once he got there, or why he agreed to be his driver.
Yeah.
Because once he got there, he started hounding... can't remember the guy's name, but Steve Cropper, the guitar player, and this other horn section, he started hounding the guys, please let me have studio time. Just let me sing one time. And he went in there, and I'm pretty sure it was "These Arms Up." And I think it was Cropper that told the story. He ran in the hallway and yelled, "Everyone get in here."
I believe it.
Yeah. So
I believe it.
Yeah. Otis is the man. And you're a big Waylon. So let's talk about the Outlaw Era. You're a big Waylon fan.
Yeah, I'm a huge Waylon fan. Willie, Chris, all of them. I love all of them. Yeah, I love Waylon Jennings. He's great. He's, like we were talking about earlier, one of those bigger than life kind of people. I mean, he going all the way back, he was with Buddy Holly, bass playing with Buddy Holly, DJing and stuff. If you dig into Waylon's story, he really was just one of them larger than life legends like him, Chris Christopherson. Their stories just amaze me. Yeah, it's he has one of those moments in his life where he was destined for something great, like what you were talking about earlier with the man you saw. I mean, he was supposed to be on that plane. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he doesn't get on the plane. He loses his seat to someone else. Yeah. And then he goes on to become Waylon. Yeah. Yeah, that haunt, you could tell every time he talked about that, just the sadness though in his eyes, because that was his best friend. I mean,
he had a lyric basically saying, "Stop asking me about it," right?
Yeah. Don't ask me who I gave that seat to on that plane a long time ago.
Yeah, is that an Outlaw shit?
Yeah, I think it might be.
I think that's what it was.
But yeah, he, you know, Buddy had told him, I hope you, because they had trouble with their bus. And I think some of the band members might have had like frostbite because they didn't have any heaters and it was so cold. And Buddy told him, I hope that old bus breaks down on your way. And Waylon said, well, I hope your old plane crashes. And that was the last thing he ever said to him.
Yep.
That's tough.
That's brutal.
You know, friends joke. I joke with my friends, stuff like that all the time, but you don't think about it. Like, that was the last thing that he said to Buddy. Then you know that hurt him. And it stuck with him all his life.
When you do so you did a great video on Rose in Paradise. When you're doing stuff like that, how much stuff do you go through to kind of find, because like, see, it seems like you've done a lot of stuff on, like you really like Waylon. So I'm just kind of focusing in on him. Is, you know, how far do you go back, or is it just something that's already on top of your mind? You're like, that would make a good story, or do you kind of go dig for it?
Some of it is, or a lot of it stuff that I already know, but I always go and research everything and try to cross-reference. And as some of the commenters know, every now and then I'll get a very small detail wrong. But I try my best to cross-reference and get the most accurate story I can. And it upsets me so much whenever stories are not told accurately or just blatantly told the wrong way, like with the Chicken and Black incident.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, somebody was saying that Johnny Cash had wrote it to get out from under his label, and that was just, Johnny Cash didn't write the song, Gary Gentry did. So I like to be a source where people can go and watch my videos and say, and never have to question, is that true? You know, because some people, you better do your research after they say something, but I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who, they watch it and they enjoy it, and they can go, after they watch my video, they can go dig into the artist and the song. They're not having to go back and fact check me. They just go dig into the music.
What are the comments like on your videos? Because you really don't have controversial stuff. Every now and again, maybe.
Yeah.
Or do people turn your positive, or you're just trying to be informative and they turn it into controversy?
People love to argue. I've learned that. I hate that to say this. I do read comments sometimes, but I don't read comments as much as I used to, because I've learned there's a lot of bitter people in the world, and a lot of times they like to be the ones to comment. And some of the nicest people will send me direct messages of, hey, I love your stuff and everything. But I do get a lot of really nice comments, really good people, and people adding to the story or giving their own personal experiences. Those are the ones I just really enjoy reading. But then you got, you know, just some naysayer in there who's going to try to spin it on something negative. But I try not to pay attention to those. I try to just keep everything positive as much as I can. It took me a long time to learn that too, because, you know, when I first started out, the first guy to come out, well, you're not country, you're probably live in the city. You know, I thought that I had to prove to him who I was.
So you went through the effort of actually trying to prove it.
And then I realized 2 weeks later, here's another guy saying the same thing. If I'm going to spend all my time talking to the naysayers and the people who are doubting what I'm doing, then that's just going to be what I do for the rest of my life. And I'm not going to give them the time of day, you know? And that's how you got to think about it. There's always going to be some bitter person trying to bring you down, and just don't give them the time of day. That's what they're looking for most of the time. It's
really interesting, the people that have a presence and have started to succeed on social media with the kind of things you do, or content creation. You're so accessible to people, whether you want to be or not, because the comments are always right there.
Right. Yeah. And I know I saw Jelly Roll's wife, Bunny, had put out a video saying that he was getting off of social media because of the comments. people saying stuff about his weight and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I believe it. I believe because it takes, you got to be tough. People don't see that side of it. You got to be tough because some people will come at you. I mean, they'll talk about anything they can, any way they can rip you. They'll do it. They'll do it in a heartbeat. So you got to be tough.
What do you think about Jelly Roll?
I think he's a good guy.
I do too.
I think the stuff that he does with I heard he's setting up a studio in the prison that he was at and trying to help those guys and working a lot and reforming. He did the thing about fentanyl in Congress. And there's a lot of naysayers about that because I've read those comments. He's just doing this for the publicity, for the good look. And my thing is, so what if he is? He's doing good in the world. And I don't think he is. I think he's got a big heart. And just the fact that he's out there doing that, I think we should be happy about it and not try to look for a motive. I appreciate him for doing that. And he seems to be a guy that helps smaller artists too. So
100%.
I appreciate him for that.
I think there's something very inspirational about him. I mean, he gives the best acceptance speeches. Him and Lainey Wilson are two great people to hear once they win the award. You're like, can't wait to hear the speech, but especially for Jelly Roll. Mm-hmm. But he's a class act. I'm a big Travis Tritt fan. Mm-hmm. And one day Travis had made a Twitter comment about he didn't like country and rap. If you put it together, it's crap. Mm-hmm. And Jelly Roll went on there and was like, man, you ain't right about this, Travis. So everyone was like, oh, here we go. It's going to turn into a big feud. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, Jelly Roll posted on his Twitter, this is still one of the greatest songs ever. And it was, I'm going to be somebody. Like he's that kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like he'll defend his stance, but he's not looking to make it personal. He respects Travis. He respects the rap that he came up under. And I actually like the music that he's doing. I think his music has a good message. And he's one of those guys that he's like the only one that can sing those songs and they're believable.
Yeah.
And it's almost like go back to Cash with Folsom Prison. Haggard's in the crowd when Cash performs at Folsom Prison, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, Jelly Roll makes the time to go and show those kids and the detention centers that I've made it. So maybe there's someone in the crowd that will look at him and go, I can make it too. So screw whoever is worried about if it's a publicity stunt or not. Yeah. He might be helping somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, is Jelly Roll in my playlist? No. You know what I'm listening to. I'm listening to a lot of the old guys. But that's okay. I have listened to his music and I really feel that the songs that he writes and stuff comes from his heart. And that's more than a lot of people can say.
Yeah.
That's on country radio today. So I'll say that about him. I don't have anything bad to say about Jelly Roll. I really appreciate him being the way that he is.
Yeah.
I do.
And for the people that make fun of his weight, he just lost.
Yeah, he's been doing awesome. He's lost
50 pounds.
Yeah.
And he ran a 5K the other day.
Yeah.
With Bert and those guys.
Yeah.
So good for him.
Yeah, he's been doing great.
Let's see what else we got here. So I want to ask you, what kind of looking into, well, I guess I'll ask about Class of 86. Are you familiar with who debuted that year?
Well, that'd be Randy Travis, Dwight Yoakam.
Boom.
Who else?
Steve Earle.
Steve Earle,
yeah. And those three guys released their album in the same month, their debut album. So I've always talked to people about Class of 86 and Class of 89. And I just want to ask you about what you think about the Class of 86.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
All three of them. I used to not be as big of a Dwight Yoakam fan as I am now. I've seen him a couple times live now, and boy, you talk about a good show. Dwight Yoakam puts on a heck of a show. I'll say that his more mainstream hits, guitars, Cadillacs, that kind of stuff, aren't my favorite songs of his. Buenas Noches from a Lonely Room is my favorite Dwight Yoakam song. That's fantastic. But Randy Travis, of course, we talked about him earlier in the AI debate and everything.
Well, let me ask you. So what do you think about Randy Travis's AI, if we can expand on the video you made?
I see it like a handicapped person who needs a a device to help them with their handicap. I think AI is perfect for that. I think it's a tool. I think it's perfect. Anything outside of that is where I don't think is acceptable. Because one, if the artist is able to sing, alive and able to sing, then they can sing. If they're not alive and unable to sing, then they're unable to give their consent on if it's even something they would have put out or the way they would have sang it, or if that's a song that they agree would be good for them. And at that point, it's 100% a money grab. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So, but for Randy, like we were talking about earlier, to see him smile and to know he was happy with it and he's seeing his art make other people happy again, I know that means the world to him as an artist. So who are we to say that he shouldn't have that?
Amen.
So the other stuff, no, but for Randy, absolutely.
Yeah. If there is a case, if you or I had a relative that was crippled and AI or any technology could help them walk again, we'd be celebrating it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's AI or technology that will help him sing again.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy for him, but I'm just like you on this situation. There's got to be some kind of like boundary.
Now, I will say, hearing Hank Williams sing NWA, I did get a chuckle.
Okay. Joey, you got to find this. You got to do Elvis Big Butts. Wait, are we allowed to with AI?
I think there's definitely like a video we could pull up of it.
Just pull it up. So Elvis, they did a big, what the hell's the guy's name?
Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Sir Mix-a-Lot.
No way. This is going to be horrible.
But, Tony was Elvis's last. Okay, cut it.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff for the comedy, nobody's being serious with it. That's funny, but it's whenever they start getting serious and trying to put out actual songs, like, hey, here's Elvis singing this song and trying to sell albums. That's where I think we got to draw a line on that stuff. But I do get a kick out of that kind of thing.
Do you think that Elvis is the biggest star ever and there will never be one as big as him?
Elvis he had that persona about him, the entourage and everything. Everything that he built around himself made him so big. There's other guys like Michael Jackson and stuff who kind of had that same kind of feeling about him, but I don't know. You got Taylor Swift, who's got thousands and thousands of fans standing outside of the stadium singing the songs, which is, I've never seen or heard anything like that. That's incredible in itself. But Elvis, the people still going to Graceland today by the thousands to see where he lived. I don't know if people's going to be going to Taylor's. Maybe they will. I don't know, but I don't think so.
So you just took my entire. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Elvis, I've been listening to him more recently. I went to Graceland in 2009. I had the experience that you were just basically, when I was walking around his place in 2009, 2008, it was my first time in Graceland. And it was an SEC Saturday in the South. I mean, I know it's Memphis, but we're still in the South. The place was packed with international travelers from everywhere. And I remember thinking, since he passed away in 1977. This is still what's going on in this house. And it's still going on today.
Yeah.
And it's almost the exact point that you were making. Like, I'm thinking like as big as a Taylor and a Michael are. Well, his reputation has been a little diminished.
Yeah.
I don't think there will ever be another Elvis.
Yeah. Well, I've been to a lot of singers' houses and places, tours or museums and whatnot. Going to Graceland is like going to the Grand Canyon or Old Faithful in Yellowstone. It's people everywhere from, like you said, international, all over the world in there. And it's just mind blowing because you're just in this giant crowd of people who's here to see Elvis's stuff. And I don't think there'll ever be anything else like that.
I don't either. And I guess when I'm saying that is kind of the point we're trying to make is that's going to live on for as long.
Yeah.
I don't think there was ever an Elvis before Elvis. So there's been Elvises since Elvis is my point. There's been big stars since then. He was the first of his kind. And amazingly, I think he'll be the biggest artist ever that has the longest lasting legacy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a bit of controversy about Elvis been for the past few years about him kind of stealing the black musician style and stuff and music. I don't think that was ever Elvis's intention. As somebody who's really dug into Elvis's history and past and the way he was, he respected those people. He did dearly respected those people. I mean, one of his really good friends was B.B. King.
Mm-hmm.
They, cut their teeth together. I think he just really respected the music. He grew up in that Southern gospel environment with those kind of people singing those songs. And I think he had a respect for it and just loved being a part of it, loved the music. So I just wanted to say that just because I do think that he had that respect for that music.
100%. Let me ask you this. At what point do we learn to draw a line between appropriation and appreciation?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's a hard question to answer. It's also like a question that I was talking about to a buddy of mine, Dillon Holiday. He also does country music stuff. We were talking about guys like Jerry Lee Lewis, David Allan Coe, Johnny Paycheck, some of these guys who had, troubled past. What point do you draw a line of looking past those things to appreciate the art? Because I love David Allan Coe's songs like I Still Sing the Old Songs, Please Come to Boston, him singing all these songs, Paycheck, Jerry Lee Lewis, I'll say it, was one of the greatest country singers of all time.
Right.
He was. Middle-aged crazy. I remember listening to that when I was 15 years old, feeling like I was going through a midlife crisis. He had it. He can make you feel. But at what point, because when I talk about some of these guys, I always have the commenters. Well, he's not allowed in my house or vehicle. I don't listen to him because of what he did. And obviously, they say that Adolf Hitler was a good artist, but nobody's hanging his paintings in their wall. So what point do you draw the line? I guess it's subjective from person to person, but it's a question that I've battled with many people, because every time I talk about David Allan Coe or Jerry Lee Lewis, I get those kind of comments.
Well, for me, it's weird with if you are influenced by black music and you're a country music artist and you incorporate into your sound, that should be a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It should almost be that you are basically saying that I hate the phrase, but I don't see color.
Yeah.
So why can you not appreciate another culture's music and incorporate it into your sound, and that be called appropriation versus appreciation? I've never understood it, why it's not like Elvis is the biggest rock and roll, is the king of rock and roll. But Elvis was very much a country music artist and bluegrass artist.
Yeah, in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Right, based on his influences.
Yeah.
And a lot of the music he cut. So who's going to get mad that Elvis uses country in his rock and roll? It's so weird to me that other races are saying that it's appropriation. I've never bought into it, because I think that that's where, in music, is where all the lines are blurred.
Yeah.
In a good way, between races and all this other crap.
Yeah. Elvis, he had his flaws. He did. If you dig into his past enough, yeah, he had some flaws.
We all do.
Well, yeah, we all do. Exactly. When Martin Luther King got shot, and they did a really great job in the last Elvis movie of showing this, that affected Elvis a lot. He had a lot of respect for Martin Luther King, and that's when he, did the If I Can Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And so Elvis, I think a lot of people who say things like that haven't dug into the history. And that happens not just with Elvis, with all kinds of people in the whole country music genre in general, that people who say, I don't listen to that stuff, that's just they associate it with bad things. Dig into the history. It's rich. And I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird what you're talking about with people being judged on history when we really don't understand what setting was back then.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot about Jerry Lee and Elvis and the age of their girlfriends.
Yeah, and that's another, it goes back to what I was talking about. Where do you draw the line? You know, because I don't agree with what they were doing at all. I'll say that right now. You know, that I don't think anybody does with any sense. What they did was wrong. What a lot of people did was wrong. If you dig into any of them, like Leadbelly, who we're talking about, Leadbelly, one of the biggest blues musicians ever, wrote Midnight Special, In the Pines, Everybody knows that song. Nirvana cut it. He killed 2 guys.
That Nirvana album, I was never into Nirvana, and but their Unplugged album is one of the best albums ever.
Oh, absolutely. When they do that song, I love that.
That, and they covered another Lake of Fire. That Lake of Fire and that Unplugged album are just fucking phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
I was wondering if I referenced Nirvana, if I would get a blank face from you. So I'm glad I didn't.
No, I listen to a lot of music. People think that I just solely listen to country, but I listen to a lot of different artists and stuff. I think it takes that to be able to appreciate any genre. If you're just listening to one genre and saying, heck with R&B and rap and rock and all that, well, you're not appreciating, because like Ray Charles mixing in and all these guys and where they came from, Leadbelly, and didn't just influence, you know, these black Mississippi Delta artists. They didn't just influence Jimmy Rogers. They influenced the people, Elvis Presley, which branched off. And it really all goes back to that one focal point, in my opinion, in American music that we have today, modern American music. Goes back to that point and it branches off like a web, and it's all interconnected. So if you really want to appreciate the history of music, not just country music, but music altogether, you have to appreciate the different genres, even if you don't like it. Like, have you heard of Country versus Metal?
It's on YouTube. Patrick.
He's a good friend of mine.
He interviewed somebody recently, and it was a great interview. Go ahead, sorry.
He interviewed me about a month ago, or 2 months ago. But he was a metalhead his whole life, never listened to country. And he started his channel as a joke. He was going to rag on country. And then he listens to it, and he's like, hold on. This is good stuff. And now he's a huge country music fan. Yeah, that's Patrick.
This is so weird because it wasn't your interview that I saw on him. He did something recently on YouTube, and I can't remember the title. There's Coe.
Yeah.
Was that you or Roger that was telling us a story earlier about the waitress and Coe? It was Roger.
It was Roger. Yep.
We heard a great story earlier about Coe being at a restaurant. I'll just make it short, on Halloween night, and the waitress asked David Allan Coe, "What did you go as?" He had just come off stage. He was just dressed as him.
I heard a story about Coe a couple of days ago, and you know, some of the stories are funny, some of them are not funny. Some of them, David Allan Coe. If you've ever listened to David Allan Coe stories, you know. But this one, he was backstage, and a crazy woman fan made her way backstage somehow and had a pair of scissors and approached him and grabbed his hair and was going to cut a lock of David Allan Coe's hair off.
Did she get it?
No. He turned around and said, "If you cut off a piece of my hair, I'm going to drop you like a effing man."
I want to do that to Joey's hair one day. Wow.
I said, that's a David Allan Coe response. I said, that's probably watered down a little bit.
That Coe, man, he did not look like a guy you want to cross.
No, he's a big guy.
Back in his prime.
I wouldn't want to cross him now, and he's like 80 something.
When you live out front of the Ryman in a hearse, boy, you got your screws ain't all there. So, but he made good music. God bless him. You're a big Paycheck fan, huh?
Yeah. When I was 3, that was the first cassette I ever had was Paycheck, and I burned it up.
You wanna tell me if you go to that video on the left, keep the mute on because they're playing music, but put it on for Dillon. I'm sure he's seen it before. What do you think? What do you think Paycheck's on in this video?
Large amounts of white powder, I can almost guarantee you.
Look at him.
Yeah.
Man, this is one of the things we're missing nowadays is these characters.
But if we could play the sound of this, he would sound so good. Even in that state, he sounded so... Oh, he was getting it.
Look at the eyes, buddy.
There's a video of him. Have you ever seen him on his tour bus singing Sharon Ray?
No.
His pupils are this big round. It's almost just black. And he sings an acoustic version of Sharon Ray. I don't know if you're familiar with Sharon Ray.
No. Pull up. Go look and see if you can fit Johnny Paycheck singing Sharon Ray on tour bus. Just see.
It's an upbeat song on the record. But this is just acoustic. And it'll almost bring you to tears. And you can tell he is zooted out of his mind. Yeah, that's it.
Keep it on mute. But I just want to tell you what, we're basically turning into an advertiser for YouTube. And just scroll through and see if Dillon sees one. Yeah, there you go. What year is this? He looks totally different.
That had to be the early 80s. See how black his eyes are?
My God.
But Gary Gentry, good friend of mine, wrote The Ride, 1959, Drinking and Driving for Johnny Paycheck. That's the first song that he pitched to Paycheck. That was his first hit. And he said that Paycheck was one, that everybody was doing it back then, the Coke.
Oh, yeah. But
he said Paycheck was one that he wouldn't even wipe it off. He said it would just be white all over his face.
Can you imagine being in this? So Waylon's studio was called Hillbilly Hut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the name?
I think so.
I think so. Now, I don't think that was the studio where they were. I think they were in New York. But we're talking about flushing the key during a DEA raid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you imagine back then?
Yeah, Richie Albright, his drummer, when they came in and was telling them why they were there, he leaned up against the speaker button.
The talkback video. The talkback
so Waylon could hear, and Waylon went to getting stuff and flushing it down his toilet. That's where the line, "They got me for possession of something that was gone."
Something that was gone.
Yeah.
The story, see, is that Tales from the Bus? Yeah, don't click on it, but because it's probably copyrighted. But Tales from the Bus does a great job of kind of making a character and kind of making it digestible in 5 minute. Have you seen some of those videos?
Oh man, Mike Judge. I'm a huge Mike Judge fan.
Were you a Beavis and Butthead guy?
Yeah, I always thought it was. I was a big King of the Hill though. King of the Hill is like my favorite show. That had a lot of Randy Travis was on it.
Yeah.
Dwight Yoakam had a recurring role. Just tons of country artists, but he's a huge country music fan. Willie Nelson was on there. But Tales from the Tour Bus, that was a fantastic show. That's one of my favorites.
One of the things I want to ask you about is are you a Travis Tritt fan?
Yeah, Travis Tritt likes a ton of my posts on Instagram.
That's the coolest thing
all the
ever.
time. It's Travis Tritt, like your post. Travis Tritt. He only follows 4 people. I guess that's why he hadn't followed me. But Travis, you watching this, give me a follow.
Yeah, me too, Travis. I'm a big Travis fan. I got to meet him when I was a kid.
Really?
And if you want to talk about something cool that happened to you, I met him before a show, and I was wearing a Georgia hat. He's from Georgia, but I met him in Birmingham, Alabama. And then so I was sitting close to the stage, and during Homesick, he took my hat from me and wore it on stage.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Travis is a guy who I have a lot of respect for because he's a guy that appreciates, and back in the day when it wasn't cool to appreciate the older country musicians, because back in the 90s, a lot of those guys felt like they were getting left behind. Fair and Young famously said country music left him behind, and he took his life. But Travis, it seemed like him and Alan Jackson, I respect the heck out of those guys because it seemed like they always pulled those older guys in and kept them in the limelight. And I've always respected Travis Tritt for that.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because this is something that he posted about recently that people forget his impact sometimes. I hear people say that Travis is underrated. I don't buy into it because he's one of the biggest artists in my playlist.
Right.
I mean, and he's one of the most biggest influences on my life as a song. As when I'm writing songs growing up, he was the guy I would copy. I would just like copy his lyrics basically. But he posted recently and said that people say that he's statistically or something the most underperforming person of the class of 89. And I got so angry reading that. I don't know how you can judge it. I know he's not fourth in album sales. There was a lot of people that came out that year, and he's definitely not last in album sales. But
yeah, he's got to be beating Mary Carpenter.
Yeah, and Clint Black.
Yeah,
in album sales, which is a pretty big metric. So I don't know what the other ones are that they're using to say that. But to your point, there's never been a more, complete package. He's one of the greatest guitar players. He's one of the greatest singers. He's one of the greatest songwriters. He performed at the Super Bowl halftime show. His damn song was in the Navy SEAL raid being played on the way back from the Bin Laden. So it still continues up until, today. Yeah. His impact on country music, he put the Eagles back together. He's always been supportive of traditional country, and he had a lot of stuff that pushed it forward. Southern rock, rhythm and blues. So the idea that his impact is like any lesser than anyone else is just crazy to me.
Yeah. No shade to Mary Carpenter, by the way. She was great. But I was just, saying, yeah, he was fantastic. I love watching his acoustic sets on YouTube and stuff.
Have you been to the show?
I've not seen him live yet.
I've been to over a dozen just the solo acoustics.
Really?
That's how much I enjoy the show.
I haven't heard of him coming close to my area in a long time, but next time I get the chance, I'll definitely go see him, because just him he's a heck of a guitar player.
Unreal.
Heck of a guitar player. People don't talk about that enough. But
do you know how hard it is to have an entire theater sit and watch you with just your voice and your guitar and like be entertained, and it sells out every show?
Yeah, he's fantastic. He really is. I enjoy watching him do that.
Yeah. One of the things I respect about that too, and Garth has done this in Vegas, so good for him. He does some solo acoustic stuff, but think about Travis. The guy used to have such a big show, he would ride a Harley on stage. And now in his 60s, he still has the chops to go and sit beneath the lights, no backing band, just him and his voice and his guitar, and puts on a hell of a show.
Yeah.
So anyone that questions his impact is just insane.
Yeah. I tell you another one who still packs out shows, and some people hate his live performances, and some people love them. I particularly love him, but that's Hank Jr.
Oh, God, yeah.
There's some people that hate him because if you've ever been to a Hank Jr. show, he changes the lyrics up. So you can't sing along at a Hank Jr. show, but you can sit back and enjoy it, and it's rowdy. But that's what he's known for. And I've been hearing about, he's on this tour now, and I've been hearing that he's with Travis Tritt on that tour. It's Travis Tritt, Hank, I think Kid Rock, and some other ones. But I've been hearing that Hank has just been killing it and drawing big crowds and everything, but he's always put on such, he played the guitar, fiddle, piano, whatever instrument you put in front of Hank Jr., he can play it. And I've always just enjoyed him being a musician on stage is so much fun to watch.
Did you ever hear Hank Jr. and Waylon and Travis do Outlaws Like Us?
Yes.
It's a hell of a song. And speaking about Travis, Who Loved Who, go to that YouTube video with Waylon Jennings. Okay, hit play.
A lot of young fellas who are really coming up in the business. Is there? First of all, do you like them?
Oh yeah, I do. I think Travis. You was talking about Travis Tritt a while ago. Travis Tritt, I think, is the best of all of them.
Do you?
Mm-hmm. I really do. But I think some things have happened in country.
Yeah, I've watched that.
Have you seen it?
I've watched that interview before. Yeah. That's really who I was referring to when I was talking about Travis keeping because Allan was more with George Jones, and but Travis did a lot with Waylon, and Waylon had a good attitude about it too. Some of those artists were bitter, really bitter which is understandable, like Farron was. I can understand it because it's your whole life. And a guy like Farron Young he was there since almost the beginning. And a lot of people had forgotten him. But Waylon had a good attitude about it. Like, don't put me in competition. Like, people's not gonna forget me. I've done it. So he always had a good attitude about it. But
I think he had survived too much to be bitter about anything.
mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about when we talk about, I mentioned Travis with the class of 89. So we have Allan, Travis, Garth, and Clint in 89,
Mm-hmm.
and Mary Chapin Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
Marty Stewart and Vince Gill,
Mm-hmm.
they started doing albums with Tony Brown that year, and they both finally kind of had their breakout years.
Right.
Like, do you see the year of 1989 like as a huge change where country finally started to get mainstream success that wasn't too watered down?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was a great year. And then the next couple of years after that, it's kind of going towards the mid 90s is whenever it started kind of going downhill. But which there's always been pop in country music. People talk about the 90s as the point, and the 90s is the point whenever it got really bad. The mid 90s kind of started going that way. But I think Patsy Cline was the first one to cross over on the pop charts way back in the 50s or 60s. But that was a fantastic year, 1989. Garth's first few albums were fantastic. Storms of Life, my goodness, that's one of the greatest albums of all time.
Yeah.
Allan's work, yeah, the class of 89 was spectacular. We need another class of 89.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting about that, and the reason I ask is some of the people that you were referencing earlier that are bitter were saying that those guys were ruining country music.
Yeah.
Who was it? I think it was Wheeler Walker recently said, I'd give anything to hear Garth Brooks on the radio now.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good point.
Yeah, it is. Well, the thing with Garth, I've talked a lot about Garth. You've probably seen my videos about it.
I saw the video of Which Country Artist Are You? And it landed on Garth.
The thing about Garth, his first few albums were fantastic.
Yeah.
Much Too Young is one of my favorite songs. I love that song.
The best.
And the stuff he did with Chris Ledoux and stuff. The more I think about it, the less I think that it's really Garth Brooks' fault. It's more the fault of the record labels. It was a big money grab. Everybody, it was to a point where if you couldn't cross over into pop or have that pop sound, then bye, there's the door, because we're in it for the money. And that's how Nashville's been like that for years. I mean, even in the 60s with the Nashville sound, Chet Atkins famously said, somebody asked him, what's the Nashville sound? He said, money.
Yeah.
And Waylon finally got sick and tired of it, getting the runaround and having to be clean cut and all this, and wrote a song like Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way? And started doing it his own way. And that's really the breakout of the Outlaw movie. Willie said the heck with it, moved down to Austin, grew his hair out. But it's always been there. It just seems like that mid 90s was kind of the tip of the iceberg whenever it started.
It was. The reason I always talk about 86 and 89 is we had like defined country music by like eras. Like we would say honky tonk, Nashville sound, Outlaw Era. And then we would even talk about the fashion statement with the urban cowboy movement.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I always cling to like 86 and 89 is when you look at the people that were breaking through or debuting that year, Garth, Allan, Travis, and Clint, and Mary Chapin are kind of all doing way different things.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that they all share is really that traditional country sound. Same can be said for Steve, Dwight, and Randy, where they're all doing wildly different things. And I think they took country music in so many amazing directions. Like, Travis going Southern rock and soul. And I don't even know if I would call what Garth did pop, other than it became pop.
Yeah.
By definition of popular.
Right. Yeah, and then Shania came on at this, that around that time.
That was really where, and then she was doing a pop album and a country album. I'll just be very frank. There's two songs that really piss me off, and I'll ask you about this. I Hope You Dance was a beautiful song. But when they originally did it, it was a country song with Sons of Desert with Leanne Womack. Shania Twain did From This Moment with Brian White originally as a duet. And then when it became a hit on the country charts, they sent it to pop radio, and they had dropped Sons of Desert on I Hope You Dance, and they had dropped Brian White on From This Moment, and it was now just a solo.
Yeah.
That's when country to me got screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good friends with Ken Mellons. You know, Jukebox Junkie was a big hit back in the 90s, but I went crazy for a while, and he ain't even cold yet. Dr. Jesus, Rub-a-Dubbin, all these great songs. I love Mr. Ken, great guy. First time I met him, because he's got a voice that's like a mix of John Anderson and Keith Whitley. I mean,
wow,
he does. Yeah. First time I met him, he played Old Habits on my guitar, and I was blown away. He told me he got the second chorus or the second verse. He said, "You take it." I said, "Oh, you got it, Mr. Ken." But I asked him, I said, with a voice like that, Mr. Ken, because I'm telling you, go listen to any one of Ken Mellon's songs, especially I Went Crazy for a While or He Ain't Even Cold Yet. You're like, this is country music. I said, how do you have a voice like that? And I don't want to offend you, but how do you have a voice like that and you didn't get any bigger than you got? And he said, I come around in the mid-90s when Shania and Garth and then we're taking off in the pop. Everybody was telling me I was too traditional and I wouldn't go in pop. And that happened to a lot of people during that era. And I'm telling you, to this day, Ken is one of the best singers I've ever heard. And he's coming out with a new album, though. He wrote a song with Dean Dillon on it. It's Honky Tonk something. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it sounds like an old Gary Stewart song. He emailed it to me. And when I heard that, I was just pumped up. I was like, here's some real country music coming out. But that just goes to show you, though, that time, they weren't wanting traditional country musicians. And they would tell them straight up, you're too traditional. You're too country.
Like Lone Star did Amazed, and they made like they sent a different version to pop radio. I think Faith Hill did Just Breathe and sent like a different version to pop radio. And to be honest with you, I didn't totally mind it. I didn't think it was the worst thing in the world. Like they were just trying to expand their market and their audience. But like when I saw like country artists getting dropped from a country song because they only want it to be a solo in pop, I was like, holy cow, we're like literally changing our songs and we're dropping other people to benefit from that song to send to a different radio station so we can get more fans. That's like, or just like appeal to a different audience. That's the kind of shit I can't even begin to imagine Willie Nelson allowing to happen.
Exactly. And he got bad. He got really bad in the latter part of the 2000s, early part of the 2010s, through the mid 2010s. But like we were talking about earlier, I think there's more hope in mainstream. There's always been the underground guys, and God bless those guys. God bless Cody Jinks, Ward Davis, Whitey Morgan, all these guys that Sturgill Simpson.
Sturgill.
Bootstrapped their way through it and paved the way. Now you got guys like Cody Johnson on the radio who are traditional. If it wasn't for those guys who pushed through and said, I ain't doing it that way, I'm doing it my way, the independent way, and we're very successful. I've been to a few Cody Jinks shows, and he's, oh my gosh, if you hadn't been to a Cody Jinks show.
I haven't been to a Jinks show. I think I'm Not the Devil is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Have you been to a Sturgill show?
I have not. I'd never got the opportunity. I'm hoping he starts to tour a little more and I get to see him.
I have to tell you how I became a Sturgill fan. I've never gone, I don't know if I've ever gone to a concert without actually hearing the artist. And he was at the Ryman. God, this might be like 8, 9, 10 years ago. He was at the Ryman, and I went to see him. And I had heard one song, the Promise.
Oh yeah,
Promise. And I was like, man, this guy's got a great voice. But if you hear the Promise, you're not really expecting everything else you're going to get from Sturgill.
Mm-hmm.
I walk in, and it was like a religious experience. His fans are insane in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And he had done Living the Dream. And apparently, I didn't know all the story until after, but apparently he had said goddamn on Conan O'Brien, who was told not to, but he did.
Yeah.
And they banned him from the show or something. So after he did Living the Dream, and he's like, I ain't got to do a goddamn thing, puts his fist in the air. And I thought the Ryman was going to collapse because everyone was yelling so loud and stomping their foot that I literally thought the place was going to collapse. And it was just like an experience to see him. One of his two guys started fighting during one of his slow songs, and he told the security guard to kick the guys out because they were fighting in the middle of the song. And as the guy was yelling at him, he's like doing this to him. And I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. This is amazing. And that's the night that I was just like, became a Sturgill convert.
Yeah. He's great.
You need to see him live. And now we just announced he's going to be doing headlining 2 festivals.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to be able to see him. I hope he does some full shows by himself or, full shows. Cause I want to see him so bad. I love Sturgill Simpson. I've been listening to him since Metamodern Sounds of Country Music or what was the one before that?
High Mountaintop?
High Mountaintop. Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was in college driving to school and had Pandora on and Sturgill pops on and I'm like, who is this guy? This is it here.
You talk about another guy that like is just willing to go in all different kinds of directions with each album.
Yeah. The coolest thing Sturgill ever did. I laughed so hard. It's when he came out with a Sailor's Guide. What is it? Sailor's Guide to Earth?
Yeah.
He won the Grammy for Best Country Music Album. Doesn't get invited to the ACM Awards, which shows you all you need to know about country music at that time. He goes outside.
It was the CMAs.
Was it the CMAs?
Yeah.
Was it here at Bridgestone?
At Bridgestone, yeah.
He's outside with his guitar case open, with his Grammy sitting in it like a busker, playing his song.
The video's on the internet, Joey, if you want to pull it up. But that's Sturgill.
Grammy award-winning artist, and he's busking outside of the CMA Awards.
And then he was joking with the guy too. He was trying to, I think if I remember this correctly, he was trying to get the guy started interviewing him. He was like, I got to talk to you if you're doing this. And he was like, hey, can I get your press pass? He wanted to go in there like with the press. Yeah, there he is outside. I mean, look at this move. This is the move.
Yeah.
When you're Sturgill Simpson, this is the move.
That's why I say God bless these guys.
Yes.
This is, for what it's worth, this is a protest. It really is.
Yeah.
This is a protest to country music. I just won the Grammy. Now I'm busking outside of the CMA Awards. Are you kidding me?
Someone asked me the other day, is that the guy was always complaining? And I'm like, if that's your read on Sturgill Simpson, you're a freaking idiot. Because I think he had mentioned like that. He was like, is that the guy that like staged that thing up front? I'm like, staged? That's not really how that guy thinks.
It's like Tyler Childers at the Americana Music Awards.
The acceptance speech?
Yeah, Americana is no part of nothing. That was his way of saying, y'all are calling it Americana, but it's country music. We need to be getting accepted at the Country Music Awards. We don't need to make this Americana Music Awards. We need to straighten out country music. Yeah,
I agree, but to be honest, sorry, I'm pausing because I just want to make sure I kind of like it that they're separate from.
I do too.
From mainstream country music.
Right.
I almost would feel weird if I saw Sturgill at the CMAs.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh shit.
I understand where he was coming from, and that's why I brought it up. I know where his heart was when he said that, or I think I do. And I know where Sturgill's heart was whenever he did that, because they love country music. I do think that the Americana Music Awards has a place.
I do too.
Dale Watson and his wife Celine put on the Ameripolitan Music Awards down in Austin. I think it has its place. Fantastic way of showing these artists who bust their butts every year recognition. I think it has its place because they're not going to get recognition from the CMAs. Sturgill wasn't invited when he won a Grammy. So they have their place, but I get where he was coming from.
100%. I guess the way I should say it is, I don't want whatever mainstream country is right now. It's not Sturgill, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
I would never want to see him try to be fit into the definition of mainstream country.
Absolutely. I would love to see him be thrown into the mix, though, as far as like the radio. I'd love to just see how it would go if you had an hour of mainstream country and then all of a sudden they throw in a Sturgill song, just how people would react. Because I think a lot of people would be like, whoa, that's some good stuff. Because there's a lot of people, even today, just your average country music fan who listens to the radio, even today might not know who Sturgill Simpson is.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad I get to do what I do, because I get to
expose them,
show people these new artists and stuff.
But that's the good thing about Spotify. Like, if you kind of start to trickle into something like Sturgill and you kind of show that you like it, he'll eventually get exposed to you through their curation.
Right.
I mean, my number one artist at the end of last year was Sturgill.
Really?
It was Sturgill, then Travis Tritt. So I have no problem.
Merle Haggard, then but I think Tyler Childers was in my top 5.
He was my 5th. Waylon was 3rd, and Allan was 4th.
You talk about a good live performance. Have you seen Tyler Lee yet? Oh, he gets into it. I'm sure you've seen the videos where he's got that, they call it the Pentecostal stare.
Yeah.
He gets into it. Sierra Farrell is another one.
She's amazing.
I saw her for the first time at Willie's 4th of July picnic this past year. Good Lord, she is something else.
I have a feeling Manuel might be dressing her. We had Manuel on the podcast, and she looks like she might be sporting some Manuel attire. You know who Manuel is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's got a voice, and she loves the music. You can tell it.
Oh, God, yeah.
You can tell it. That's what these people, when they sing, you get the heart. And I love Sierra Farrell, Tyler Childers, Sturgill, all those people.
Well, I've got sidetracked on so many things talking to you, buddy. I want to ask you about, I want you to dig in a little bit more on one of your videos you did, music conspiracy theories.
I think that's been a long time ago. I think you probably watched that on one of my fake accounts.
No, it was under yours. You had to scroll through to find it all.
Okay.
Yeah, by the way, it's a good time to say publicly that there are now imposters out there that are faking Dillon's account. So make sure that when you follow Dillon, you follow actually Dillon Weldon. Honestly,
that's been at least 2 years ago that I made that video. I'm trying to remember what I said in it. If you'll remind me.
You might have to pull it up.
I
don't know if we'll be able to find it that quick. It was about, screw me now, I'm going blank.
You might not find it. It was
that's country versus metal.
Yeah, that's a clip from the podcast.
Okay, we'll just abandon that one. Well, let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah. I've been enjoying it. I started it out. I tried to start doing like these deep dives in the country music drifting cowboy podcast. I didn't really enjoy doing that. It takes I realized real quick, you're basically writing a 15 to 20 page essay and reciting it into a microphone. And it just wasn't fun for me. I mean, I enjoyed the history and going into the history, but it was a lot of work and it took a lot of my time. And, so now I more or less just use it to interview people. I did Gary Gentry yesterday, and we talked to Roger. Hopefully I can get him on and Jim. And I really want to use it as a way for them to tell their story, so people can hear. Because I tell a lot of the stories behind the songs and the artists and stuff, but to hear it from them is something special. So that's what I want to use it for from now on.
Well, and they can find it on, people can find
Spotify.
it on Spotify. And are you doing every video on YouTube or every episode on YouTube?
I'm going to try to start doing every one on there now.
So some are video and some are audio.
Yeah.
Okay.
The ones that I started the deep dives was just audio. I think I did 3 or 4 of them. I did The Life of Hank Williams, Tammy Wynette. It might have just been those 2. Speaking of which, Tammy Wynette, God bless that lady. She had a hard life.
Yeah, she's from where I'm from, Birmingham.
Yeah, she was a special lady. Her and George's daughter, Georgette's going to be performing Apartment Number 9 tonight at the Opry for the Johnny Paycheck tribute, because Paycheck wrote Apartment Number 9. That's going to be real special to see. She was a special lady.
Yeah, she's doing a song with a woman that came on here, Lisa Brokop, Who's Gonna Fill Their Heels.
I saw that in your podcast, and I went and listened to it.
Yeah. And Georgette, I think she's being repped by Pam. I think Pam was working with Georgette in some form of fashion. Pam was here yesterday, or not here. Pamela was on the podcast, but Pam Lewis was back in the back. I went in there. She helped manage Garth for the first 4 years of his career.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, but Tammy Wynette, so Georgette's is going to perform tonight at the Opry.
Yeah.
And that's going to be part of the Paycheck tribute?
Yeah. It's John Paycheck, Georgette Jones, Jesse Keith Whitley, Jamie Johnson, Chris Jensen, and a couple of others are going to be there. It's going to be a fantastic show.
We got to ask you, so you do a lot of old stuff. What do you think about the FGL beef?
I could care less.
Amen.
Or I couldn't care less, I should rather.
I read the other day, one was mad at the other, and I was like, so?
Yeah.
And then they wrote, they're closing the bar, and I was like, so?
Yeah, good. Talking about those bars down there on Broadway, the thing that upsets me the most, every time I walk down there, I just about get teary-eyed walking past it, is Ernest Tubbs Record Shop.
Oh, yeah. You know, I went in it like about 2 months before it closed just to go in it one more time.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get to go in it before it closed also. There was so much history in that little building. You know, his Jubilee special that he did after the Opry was recorded there. Then they'd cross over and go to Tootsie's. Nashville, it just seems like it doesn't care about the history. It's money. They're going to turn it into a bar. It'll be, I don't know, one of these new artists' bar, and Ernest Tubbs Record Shop will be it's already a thing of the past, but the sign will be down and everything. But the last few times I was in Nashville, you walk past, you could look in it, and it was just bare walls. That was really sad. Now they got some tarps up, but it's...
Well, I think you're right. It's going to be a bar, and it's probably not going to be able to be an artist bar, for the simple fact that what artist is going to take the risk of doing that?
True.
I wouldn't want to put my name on it.
I wouldn't either.
Put it in the building next, put it in the building, a block down, but going into that building could catch you a lot of heat.
Yeah. But it might be somebody who, Ernest Tubb who.
But history only, that's true. Good point. Good point. But no, history only matters until the money's involved, and then they don't really care that much about it at all.
Exactly. I was riding around last time I was in Nashville with Mr. Gary, and we was riding around Madison. He pulled up Home Depot. And that Home Depot there is where Jim Reeves' house was. That car wash there is where Hank Williams used to dry out. And it's like all these historic places are gone and taken over by progress.
When you aren't songwriting or researching, what else do you do in your life? What's fun for you outside of music?
That's really my favorite thing to do is play music. When I'm not writing or doing videos or stuff, I'm usually, one of my best friends, Cody Neal, me and him write and play a lot together. So we'll go over to one of my friends, older man, he just had his 69th birthday, Peanut Martin. we'll go over to his house and we'll play till 6 o'clock in the morning, just old country song stuff. He enjoys it, or Gary Morrow's or something. Those are some guys I got to give people like Cody, Peanut, Grant, and Charlie Johnson, my friends who encouraged me along the way. I'd play a song for them and they tell me, some of Kenny Spears being one he'll tell you, that ain't good. That's a B-side song. He'll tell me that song. Yeah, that's a good B-side song. But those guys, to get to where I've been, there's been a lot of friends and family, my mom being one of my biggest supporters, my wife. My wife puts up with a lot, lets me come to Nashville whenever I need to. Earth, I love her to death, and my mom and Peanut, Gary Townsend, and all these guys who've just supported me and been in my corner no matter what. Those people mean a lot to me. People ask, what's it like going and playing with this star or hanging out with this person and writing these songs? Truth be told, I'm grateful for it. I love it. But if I had to choose between that and being back home playing music with my friends, that's where I'm happiest, is sitting in a circle, picking guitar and swapping songs. That's where I'm happiest.
That's beautiful.
And I've missed 1,000 people whenever I was saying that, but they know who they are.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to say that.
Good.
Thank you to those people.
Yeah. And those are the influences.
Yeah.
I know we always talk about like who I listen to on the radio, but I had buddies who I jammed with in high school, and those are the real people you learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Just you and a buddy in the garage, and you're like, oh man, how'd you write that line? How'd you play like that? I mean, those are the people that you're really, your first collaborators, I should say. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And like I talked about, Miss Samantha, my 9th grade English teacher, sent that email to my mom. I don't know if she ever even realized how much that meant to me. That gave me that push. My ag teacher those years showing me, really, he showed you how to be yourself. Mr. Fontenot, he was himself all the way through. But all those influences from childhood, you're exactly right. People always talk about who they listen to on the radio and stuff, but it's the family and friends back home who matter and who are the real influences behind even the biggest names. I think they would agree with that.
Yeah.
They always, you always want to talk about these artists and stuff, and they are influences and very important people, but it always goes back home to me.
Well, you've been building such an amazing platform, kind of organically, kind of just trying out new stuff. What is your advice to people on the drive it takes to find your place in the world and then give it your everything and just go for it?
Well, I told you about me throwing my hands up and saying, God, take the wheel. And people ask me like, well, how'd you get started in this? And I sometimes joke, say, well, I gave up. It's kind of the truth.
It's true.
When that first video took off a week later, and then I had another one take off, my friend Josh Walker, that's one of them. I told you we made goofy videos together in high school. He has a big following in his own right in the sports world. He's broke like 7 or 8 world records in basketball. And we were texting back and forth, and we made a pact. This was last May, a year from right now, a year back from now, last May, we made a pact that we were going to be consistent. Let's post consistently for a year and see how far we can be in 1 year. That was a year ago this month.
Wow.
And I had 30,000 followers a year ago this month. And now I have 300 and something thousand just on TikTok and 200,000 on Facebook and 70-something thousand on Instagram. That's just consistency over a year. So if I can tell anybody anything, be consistent and always try to make the last one better than the one you put before.
Yeah.
And that's the best advice I can give. Consistency and try to improve every time.
Do you have a lot of people that are reaching out to you now that are like asking your advice on how do I build a platform? How do I start to find my way on Instagram?
Yeah, I have a lot of people call me and ask me questions or just general questions about analytics in general. Grayson Russell called me last week. He's the one who brought me out to Bon Aqua to Johnny Cash's farm. He was the little red-headed kid in Talladega Nights who said, I'm going to jump at you like a spider monkey.
Are you for real?
Yeah. He called me last week and he was asking me about a certain analytic on Instagram. And then we just kind of started talking like buddies. And he's like, hey, when you come to Nashville, I was like, I'm going to be in Nashville next week. Well, let's hang out. And he's friends with Mr. Brian and Miss Sally.
Okay.
And we ended up going out there and incredible. I mean, that is one of the coolest places I've ever been. And a lot of people don't know about it. I think just not a lot of advertisement around it. But Johnny Cash's farm in Bon Aqua, it's also a museum.
It's a museum. Yeah, that's what I thought.
If you ever have the chance to go, I mean, it's just such an amazing collection of not just his stuff, but stuff in general. Great place. They were so nice to me. I got to wear one of the coats for a picture. And
I saw the picture.
Yeah, that was Grayson that was with me. Grayson and Dillon Holiday, who also does the country music content. It was fantastic to go out there. And so John Paycheck's going to be on the Opry tonight, and we're going back tomorrow, and I'm going to have him on my podcast in Johnny Cash's living room. So that's going to be incredible.
How long does it take for you to post your after you do the podcast?
Not long. I do the video editing takes the longest.
Okay.
But I generally try to get them out pretty quick, which after this week I'll have a few, so I'll probably space them out a couple weeks at a time so it's not just all at once.
Yeah. We'll probably have this posted on streaming and then videos will come out on YouTube over time. But so those will all be up by that time. How am I doing on time?
3:40.
Okay. We'll pull up his social media because I know he's got to go to this tribute tonight. So I think I told him 3:30.
Oh, you're fine.
Hope you ain't mad at me.
No, I got all the time in the world.
We've gone off the rails on this one, man. I've been all over the place. I apologize. I just love picking your brain about all these ideas and about all these artists.
I think it's been fantastic.
So, now
Instagram. Yeah.
That's the Instagram for people that are looking up. I mean, everyone already knows Dillon stuff. It's so funny to me. We saw Roger this morning, and Roger's like, "Oh, I know your stuff." Like I thought I was introducing him to him.
Hey, I went to I was going to Gary's yesterday morning. I stopped at the gas station, and I was going in. A guy was coming out. This ain't going to the podcast, is it?
Yeah.
This is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll save that story for after the podcast.
Do we have a mute button?
I can mute everyone,
but anyway, okay, so TikTok. Jesus Christ, here we go. Now I got TikTok on my computer, even though don't have an account.
No, it's just a website.
Well, at least it'll be American intelligence looking at me now that they're banning the Chinese company. So anyway, here.
Okay, you see that Hank Jr. fall over there in the corner.
Yeah, it's off the mountain in Montana.
That's the video.
This one?
The one that says Hank Jr. fall.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Can you click on it and see what the date is?
Yeah.
That's the first video.
Ever?
That's the first video that blew up.
5.
Yeah.
24.
You're coming up on a year.
Yep. That's what I was telling you. It was after this video that we decided we was going to be consistent. So it hadn't even been a year yet.
So you have a buddy that's helping you do these videos.
No, he doesn't help. I do everything myself.
Does he have his own page?
He has his own page.
Oh,
Josh
cool.
Walker, his own sports page. And he's done some pretty amazing stuff himself. We're just in totally different worlds, you know. But we both started off. He was younger than me in school, and we both started off doing these goofy videos. And there were some people that told us we were dumb and stupid, which we were. We were stupid kids. We were just being dumb. But to see where it's got us now, of the three, there was also Stephen Maxwell. He's a big news reporter now. He went into news. He loved doing the video and stuff, so he went to news, and he's a news reporter down in Shreveport. Josh has his social media stuff, and I have mine. So it's kind of like we all came from that and expanded and did our own thing. So it's really cool now, 12 years later, 13 years later, to see this. It's
Mr. Beast talks about how he just always talked with other creators, and like that helped him launch his stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like we were talking about the music business. I believe in helping. Now, there's some people who will steal from you.
Yeah.
Not just my content and posting it as me, but there's people who will just, straight up copy you and stuff. But there's a lot of people like Dillon Holiday, who was in that picture with me. He helps me, I help him. Nikki in Nashville's another one she's wonderful. We help each other. It's like a community in itself within the country music social media. Whiskey Riff, you see they post my stuff all the time. God. They're really great to me. They send me free stuff all the time. That's one of my favorite things about this is getting free stuff in the mail. Boot Barn sent me like $1,000 worth of stuff.
So I'm a big fan of Whiskey Riff. I get as much non-music news from them as I do music.
Yeah.
I love their wildlife stuff with bears chasing elk and all kinds of crap.
Uh-huh.
So we had David Lee Murphy on here, and I got nervous for a second that I might have stepped somewhere I shouldn't have stepped. I had a shirt that I wanted Joy to pull up about the Creole Williams. People had made shirts about Creole Williams from Dust on the Bottle. Mm-hmm. And I had a totally different shirt I wanted him to pull up, but he pulled up one of Whiskey Riff's shirts. And David Lee was like, yeah, I own that. Not that shirt, but I own the Creole Williams. And I was like, oh, shit, I hope I can get those guys sued. But no, David Lee could care less. He didn't matter. But he had actually bought Creole Williams. And that was one of the moments on the podcast I was like, should I edit this out?
Hey, congrats on having him on because he is fantastic.
Listen.
He's a songwriter.
He is, he just went in the Hall of Fame with Rafe Van Hoy and Casey Beathard and Kix Brooks. And I think I'm leaving out one more person. One thing I learned about David Lee having him on is, that song, Everything's Gonna Be All Right, that he wrote and did with Kenny? Yeah. He's like, he is that exact song. He is the most laid back guy, almost to the point where I was like, man, I hope I'm not being like how do I need to navigate this? Because he is so laid back, but he is one of the greatest songwriters ever to me.
Yeah. I've never met him, but I did see him perform once at a festival. He was, it was actually the day Chuck Berry died, I think.
Oh, really?
I remember him doing Johnny Be Good for Chuck Berry, but he's fantastic.
Yeah,
heck of a writer.
He really is. I mean, I think that he had a good recording career, and he got to have another number one. Like, I think he said he was like 50 years old when he had another number one. But Dust on the Bottle, Party Crowd, these are songs that are still played on the radio here, 106.7. Oh, yeah. Do you listen to 106.7 when you're here?
I don't ever listen to the radio hardly anywhere.
For the rest of the time you're here, do me a favor, put on FM 106.7. They play 70s, 80s, and 90s country.
I'll listen to that
But
one.
so he's still in sharp rotation. And look at the stuff he wrote for Thompson Square and Aldine. He's still just a great writer.
He is.
It was cool getting to meet him because he kind of defined my high school years with some of his music.
Yeah. He's, most people hear him, they think Dust on the Bottle. But for those of you listening, dig into the other songs that he's written because he's a fantastic writer. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these country musicians are also writers and write for other people. And it'll blow your mind on some of them, who they've written for and what they've written.
I'd say peak DLM for me is Good One Coming On.
Oh, yeah.
And Ain't Much Left of Me.
Smoke.
And Ain't Much Left of Me.
Blackberry Smoke. Oh, what a band. They're the fantastic. Best. Oh, I haven't seen them live yet, but I can't wait.
I said something wrong about the way they redo Good One Coming On. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten one of the lyrics wrong, and boy, their fans let me know. Because I gave the PG version.
Yeah.
They reimagined the lyrics, and I gave the PG version, and they were like, that ain't it. So I love that. I love them to death for that. Well, we've already promoted some of your pages here. So I just got to say this again, Dillon. When I found your stuff online, I guess like everybody else became an instant fan. You continue to educate me on things that I don't even know about, or even the stories like I knew about Jim McBride with Rose in Paradise. When I watched you tell the story, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And so, it's just amazing how important you've become in my life is educating me. And anytime I need a quick 2 or 3 minute fill up, I just get to go on there and get to learn something new from you. And I really appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you, Tyler. That means a lot to me, and it means a lot what you're doing, because we are a community,
Yeah.
To keep country music alive. That, to me, that's been my main objective for a long time now. And so I appreciate everything you're doing. You're doing a jam up fantastic job. When you asked me to come on, it was a no brainer. Like,
Wow.
I'm 100% doing that. So I'm thankful for you. I thank you for letting me come out here and do this. We're going to have to do it again, because I feel like we could have done this for 10 hours. And
Absolutely.
still been.
Absolutely. Listen, anytime you're in town, come on. I think, I'm just going to go ahead and say it publicly. I think me and you need to sit across from Jim and Roger and do a 4-person podcast. And we'll just shut up.
That'll be a good one, but it might last 4 hours, 10 hours.
I'll pay whatever I have to pay for the studio time, and it's on me.
Man, well, thank you, man. I
buddy.
appreciate it, and I can't wait to do it again. And thank you for lunch with Roger and this book from Jim. This stuff means more to me than any amount of money.
Well, you deserve it.
I promise you. Thank you so much.
You deserve it. Anything I can ever do for you, I'm happy to do, my friend.
Same here.
You're a good man.
Thank you. You too.
Appreciate you being here. All right, bye, y'all.